are you not? Your voice is off.
No, we'll all be muted. Look.
And you've got full battery power on this.
Well, HDMI, there should be HDMI too as well. And it's just weirdly disappeared.
Switch to at the bottom.
Hello.
I'll say thank you for that, actually.
Camera's not showing.
Venice.
Who's on? How many people are on? Ash.
Who's that? Yeah.
Who's that woman?
Yeah.
Janice, you just need to unmute yourself.
So sorry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Janice, and it's a real pleasure to have over 45 people attending this fourth virtual tour of European cities run by Maccabi GB. We are delighted that this morning's tour is slightly different from our previous ones, in that our tour guide is actually out and about, walking around the Jewish sites of Venice. Before I hand you over to Jonathan Provisa, Vice Chairman of Maccabi GB, I would just like to tell you a few house rules for this morning. We will be muting you all during the tour. There will be time for questions and answers afterwards. Please do put your messages in the chat, and we will ask Louise Ella at the end. If you have any questions throughout the tour, please just put a message in the chat and a member of the Maccabi GB team will be able to assist you. Enjoy the tour, and I'd now like to hand over to Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the fourth Maccabi GB virtual walking tour, which today comes from the beautiful city of Venice. For those of you who are new to Maccabi, we are an international-based charitable organization with our headquarters in Israel. We represent the UK with a number of affiliates throughout the country and in Scotland. Now, some of you may associate Maccabi with sports programs. And whilst that is still very true today, we are also involved in many activities which include education programs, youth leadership courses promoting Jewish identity, culture and traditions, and health and well-being programs. We have a very strong school education department where we teach young people about anti-bullying, online safety, and how to deal with relationships and discrimination. Because of the recent very sad events in Israel, our work is in demand more than ever. So if you'd like any further information, please do not hesitate to contact our office, the details of which can be found on our website. Thank you everyone who have donated to this morning's event. We are always extremely grateful. And it now gives me great pleasure to introduce our guide for today, Luisella Romeo. Luisella lives and works in Venice, where her family have resided since the mid-1700s. She's been a registered guide since 2000 and loves telling stories of Venice with, and she told us this, with great sense of humor. Now, she loves traveling, but always wants to come back to Venice and is very happy to show the city to people on their own or in groups. She loves photography, rowing on her wooden boat, which apparently is not the same as a gondola. She just told me that. She loves fashion and anything that is local or locally produced. So over to you, Luisella. Thank you.
Thank you all.
yeah, I'm really honored. Also, I'm really, in a way, feeling you are here. Of course, I wish you were really physically here, and I'll do my best to help you enjoy and understand a part of Venice with me today. I'm wearing a mask as this will be compulsory in Italy for 2 more months. I hope that the mask will not affect the sound signal, and I trust that if you have any problem, we'll find a way to help you find a solution as quickly as possible. Now, I think you're tired of looking at my mask, the face. So let me show you where I am. I don't know how many of you have been to this part of Venice, how many of you have been to Venice. Just to let you know, we are right now viewing one of the very few canals in Venice we call canal. Many of the canals in Venice, the vast majority, is called Rio, R-I-O. And whenever Venetians call a canal the canal of, like Canal Grande, Canal della Giudecca, or the canal we have now, the canal Cannaregio, they wanted to stress that these were very important waterways. Right now, you see a water bus passing, a private water taxi coming. But in the past, this was the main way to reach Europe. So imagine Germans, Hungarians, Polish, Flemish, Austrian merchants that crossing the Alps reached the mainland and then loaded their barges. They would come down this canal eventually that would bring them far to the right, to the Grand Canal. And then further down to the Rialto, the most central part of Venice, the only one William Shakespeare thought worthwhile being mentioned in his works. If you have a chance to reread The Merchant of Venice or Othello, then pay attention to that. There is no mentioning of St. Mark's Square. There's no mentioning of the ghetto. All he thought worthwhile mentioning was the area of Rialto, the trading center, the financial heart, where Venice made a lot of money. Whatever we see in the city came on a boat. Originally, here you had only mud, brackish water, mosquitoes, that's it. But Venice in the Rialto was able to bring goods that came from all over, I would say from all over the world that was known at that time, and be able to be in a way, the border between the East and the West. So what were the German, Hungarian, Polish, Flemish, Austrians coming to Venice to sell? So down this canal, there would be barges bringing very high quality Flemish wool. There would be also silver and copper. I wish I could show you on a map where we are. We are very close to where today the train station is. Imagine that till 1846, there was nothing there, or rather, only convents, monasteries. This was the most peripheral part of the city, the most suburban part of a town, but a major canal, because you know, the Germans and all those other people we call the Germans, Tedeschi, and we meant Northern Europeans, were bringing to Venice 1/4 of the total income this country was making, as when they left those barges, after leaving the silver, the copper, and the Flemish wool in Venice, they would sail back and then cross the Alps again to bring what I find very interesting combination, silk, spices, and a lot of sugar. Sugar was very expensive. It was not honey. So I can imagine all these Germans going back with their sugar and silk and perfume. But you see, the area of the monasteries and the convents was then closed down in 1807. It was a decision Napoleon took. And then it was transformed into the railway station. So you will see today what it means. This is the major hub of the city. You will have hundreds of people that have decided to spend this sunny day in Venice, coming from the mainland by train. And so this brought a big change, that of the arrival of the railway station in 1846. But what was it like when Jews lived just across the canal? I don't know if you can see now. I'll try to enlarge. I'll get there in a minute, but before I wanted to show you what the entrance of the Jewish ghetto used to be. So you may notice behind the red awning, there's a yellow house and then there's a passage. And Jews would enter their home through that door till 1797. You have no idea of how many I met that coming to Venice said, why were the Jews complaining about living here? They were close to the railway station. Sure. I would say also you will see down there a street where we have also McDonald's. Why were they complaining? They were even close to McDonald's. Well, the truth is that there was no railway station in Venice while Jews lived in the ghetto, as the ghetto was a ghetto till 1797. So you will see now a lot of people, you will see a lot of lively cafes and restaurants and life, but this was not the case when Jews lived here. And before the Jews moved there, what was it like? Well, you remember the Germans. They were coming here with silver, copper. Okay, copper. Copper, that gave the idea to the state of Venice that this was a perfect place to place metal foundries. And so down there, you would have the worst area ever. It would be full of debris. The air was difficult even to breathe. But that was where the Venetian state decided to have its metal foundries, where with the bronze, with the metals that the Germans were bringing, you could make a bronze, and therefore what else but cannons, weapons. And you know, the way Venetians speak their dialect is, oh, that's the bus arriving. Sorry for the beep, beep. We're really live, as you can tell. So the Germans, when coming here with their copper, and here with the tin, they made the bronze bars. This was the perfect place for the metal foundries, and the Venetian language, the dialect we speak, at that time called the area the ghetto, G-E-T-T-O. The first Jews that were told go and live there were speaking German. They mispronounced the word ghetto and they said ghetto. And that's the beginning of that word that became very popular, very fashionable, very trendy. And it's the Venice, as some say, contribution to the language of discrimination. Before I take you in, and I will add more and more, I just wanted to show you the yellow house, which was not for Jewish people. And the big buildings on the back that were for the Jews. You see the difference in height. When the Jews were told, if you want to live in Venice, that's the place, there wasn't enough room. And so you would have one floor added on top of another floor and on top of another floor. Some call it the skyscrapers of Venice. I disagree. If you go to Rialto, where the trading center would be, you find homes of the same height. But what you don't find is the numbers of stories, how many floors, what kind of density of population you had in those, let me use a more modern word, slums. So let's start exploring this area. I will then walk down this embankment called Fondamenta and cross that bridge, which you will see then is very crowded, right? Because to the right, walking 10 minutes, you reach the railway station of Venice. Walking to the left, walking 25 minutes, you reach the area of Campo Santi Apostoli, and then 10 more minutes, you reach the Rialto Bridge. So it's a major street. It's a major way, an easy way from the railway station, which was built in the most peripheral part of a city, to reach instead the central part. And most of the people that do not know much about the labyrinth of Venice will take this route because you will see it's particularly straight. Let me tell you the whole thing. Let's go up the bridge. And again, if you have questions that need a prompt answer, please place them in the chat and our committee will help me read them while I move around. So you see now all the people that are coming today. Yeah, lots and lots. And then we go all the way up the so-called Ponte delle Guglie. So it's the bridge of the pillars of the obelisks. And down this way. People are watching me as if I'm doing what? And there we go, you see more of this street that takes to Rialto, as you can see from the yellow sign on the yellow building to your left, right under the clock. And just go straight till you reach Campo Santi Apostoli, and then turning around 10 more minutes and you reach Rialto. Now, I need to tell you that when the Austrians, the Habsburg Empire, decided to build the railway bridge, they realized after building the bridge that connected Venice to the mainland, that the railway station in Venice was in the very peripheral part of a city. And they said, now, how do people reach Rialto? How do people reach San Marco? And so the Austrians thought, how about if we fill in the canal down there? So this was a canal. And it was taken all the way to the Rialto. They filled it in. It took quite a while. By 1866, here we have the only street in Venice we call in an Italian way, Strada Nuova. So let's now move to the left to reach instead the entrance to the ghetto. You may have read there were gates. It was quite special. It was the very first time somebody thought of segregating a community in an area with the gates at its entrance. And I've just met a friend that we keep on meeting every day almost. Buona giornata, Cecilia. Ciao, ciao. Grazie. So the way it works is that, you know, when you drive, you don't meet anyone. When you walk, you do meet, even if you do not plan to do it. In a way, we don't need a Facebook in Venice. So now, when you read about the gates, that was really special, an idea that was extraordinary. What does it mean to place gates in an area where just a community would live? Consider also that Venice was a city from the very start that was becoming wealthier and more powerful, right? Because there was no purity at the beginning. It was a place where everyone came from somewhere else. And the legend that claims that Venice was founded by refugees escaping from the barbarians ransacking the Roman Empire after its fall, which, by the way, in the last 20 years has proved to be fake news of the Middle Ages, but no matter. If you investigate about the origins of Venice, you find out that most of the books tell you refugees founded Venice escaping from barbarians. So that's the beginning. It's a city of mixed, multi-ethnicity. But what was it like for the Greeks, for the Croatians, for those Germans I mentioned? There were several strategies to be a city of cities. The Jews and Muslims were given the rule that from the sunset to the sunrise, here we have, this is where one of the gates would be, from within the ghetto, Jews had to lock themselves in. Actually, to be very precise, they had to pay Christians guards that would lock from within the ghetto at sunset. At sunrise, when you heard the big bell in St. Mark's Square, which can be heard all over the lagoon, then the gates were opened and you could leave the ghetto and you could enter the ghetto. The gates were removed in 1797, but they still show here where they were. So I'm pointing to you a hole where the metal latch would lock in. You can see several. Prego, prego. Okay. So I hope you can see. Prego, prego. Avanti, avanti. So you can see where the latch would go. And on this side, you still see the metal part. So this was one of the gates. And then we can read up there. I hope the connection holds. I'm asking also some support from the committee to help me in case the bandwidth gets low. We are somewhere close, as you can see. So sotto Portego del Ghetto. You see there's an H added. Originally it was a GE, but as you know, in the German language, you have a guttural G. So from J sounds soft to the guttural G, the ghetto became the ghetto. You remember the metal foundry. And here you had another gate. So this was a sort of checkpoint. So you see here more of where another latch would go. And then on this side here, let me show. Okay. So this was the way out of the ghetto and the way in. Before I forget, there's a lot, as you can imagine, to tell. Before I forget, I tell you that the only ones allowed to leave the ghetto during the night hours were Jewish physicians, as they were able to read Arabic. And Arabic was the language into which the Greek, originally written in Greek, medicine books had been translated. They were considered to be particularly good. So the Christians said, well, yes, let's make an exception. Jewish doctors will leave the ghetto, but they will need to tell where they are going so that we can check if it's really for work that they leave the ghetto during the night hours. I'm now moving further down this way. This is the part that was, you remember, the Jewish already. So where are the very tall buildings? I'm turning around so you can see them. I'm not complaining about the light, but the sun sometimes creates some contrast. So you can see here the very tall buildings. Of course, no lift to go all the way up there. This is a part of Venice that was given to Jews in 1541. It's not the very first ghetto. We have 3 ghettos. And the very first one was the one I'm going to show you next, in 1516, was given to some Ashkenazi Jews. What we are looking at now is the area for Sephardic Jews. They came to Venice in 1541, or at least were given this area to live in 1541, but permanently they didn't stay till 1589. Down this street called the Calle del Ghetto Vecchio, so of the old ghetto, which you understand is just referring to the old metal foundry, we find also our favorite kosher bakery. And I hope you had a good breakfast, so you won't have your mouth watering, but mine is already. By the way, we have a lovely mix. So these are the impada, and you may have tasted, so they are not as sweet as they look. It's almond dough, and they have a Sephardic origin. But then you switch to the ones with just almond and a lot of sugar also. And these ones are called zuccherini, which basically means little sugar. So you can tell that's kind of a grade from the less sweet to the sweetest. And then you can see the almond taschen here on, yeah, here we are, almond taschen. So you have the ones with Nutella and the ones with the jam. And then I wanted to show you something that is typical of the Venetian tradition, which you can find in all bakeries, except that there they will use butter. Here they use instead extra virgin olive oil. So these are the zaetti. So the zaetti, which means the little yellow cookies, biscuits, have raisins inside, and they're really, really tasty. And they are the ones I can call Venetian tradition. But you know, in a city of people that came from all over, what is Venetian? What is not Venetian? Anyway, this is the S, also called bisse, like a sort of eel, and they are absolutely delicious. And these ones are with fennel seeds and are very, very sweet. And we have also some meringue and clearly the classical bread. But what I wanted to show you was what maybe you're not too familiar with, and that's the S and the zaetti. Giovanni Volpe founded this bakery around 60 years ago. And the funny thing is that it's our rabbi that will give the kasherut certificate. So there you see that it's telling that it's all kosher, that it's all absolutely kosher. But just to let you know how confusing things are in Venice, Giovanni Volpe, and the ones that run these bakeries are Christians. Woo! So what does it mean? It means, oh, wait, I have just seen something I really love, and that's the bread pudding. And it's also strudel on the back. Anyway, the bread pudding is something that you will find in all bakeries in Venice, not just this one here. So how comes that Giovanni Volpe decided to start a Jewish bakery, Jewish kosher tradition bakery? Well, because this is the thing, that in the city of Venice, the ghetto in a way stopped being an exclusively Jewish area. It was no longer after 1797. So it's obvious to imagine that things were mingling. Oh, by the way, just in case you wonder, we are in Italy. So one thing is what the law says, and one thing is what really happened. So let's not take the rule that Jews only had to live in the ghetto and that rule was respected. It was, let's say, more of a gray zone. So let's now look at this lovely square where we see the synagogues our community uses today. The one I'm showing you featured also in the Merchant of Venice film with Al Pacino, Jeremy Irons. It's called the Levantina. It's a synagogue that was redesigned in this quite monumental way. It's not as big as some of the synagogues you find in Italy after the unification of a country. This is dating back to the end of the 1500s, beginning of the 1600s. It seems Baldassarre Longhena, an architect of Jewish origins, although converted to Christianity, was the one that gave the idea. Please don't forget, Jews in Venice were not allowed to be architects, were not allowed to be artists, were not allowed to contribute to the construction of the place where they would pray. Christians only would. So I will add more to the synagogue's history in a while, but just to let you know that when you enter, it feels that maybe you're visiting a church, because the artists that were building the synagogue in Venice were the ones that usually would build a church. And when talking to the Jewish community members would probably ask, what is the Aron like? Or where do you put, what do you think the bima should look like? And so they give, let's say, metaphors, symbols, or ideas to be inspired by from the architecture of the churches. I just want to show you the beautiful door. This is the Bet Midrash Luzzatto. The entrance to the synagogue is on the side. I'll show you in a minute. Oh, by the way, again, when people meet, when they talk, when they try to communicate, a lot of the Christian architects and sculptors that worked in the synagogues after building the synagogues built more churches and would be influenced by the ideas they got while they were building the synagogues. Okay, so if synagogues were built after Christian churches, we have also Christian churches that were built after the synagogues. Now I'll show you also the other one. So Levantina, this is the one we use in the winter for a good reason. It's heated. And the one instead that it's used in the summer is the one here that it's called Ponentina. You see also the women's section up there, lots of steps. You may know that in Italy, we don't have reformed Jews. So when the separation of women and men is still required, well, today there are screens in the main room behind which women can sit without walking all the way up to their, I would say, Dolomites mountains peak up there. Anyway, Ponentina and Levantina, what does it mean? It means that this is where the sun sets, and there we have the Levantina, that's where the sun rises. So they are for the Sephardic community, and this was for Spanish and Portuguese, the Marranos also. And this one here was for the ones that came from the Ottoman Empire. So we can say Salonicco, we can say Istanbul, we can tell about Asia Minor, so where the sun rises. You find also a cistern. Don't forget, Venice was a city without fresh water, so people would drink filtered rainwater, and this was for the community. And you find also the name of the square, which is Campiello. So like my name, that means Little Louise. Campiello means little campo, so small square, delle scuole. The word scuola in Venice referred to three kinds of associations. You would find the guilds, arts and crafts guilds. So the scuola of, I don't know, the shoemakers. Then you would have the large scuole, scuole grandi, that started their tradition in 1260 within the flagellation. I have to be careful because somebody understood the other day, flatulation. No, I'm sorry. Anyway, a flagellation. So they were flogging themselves, okay, for the salvation of a soul. They were eventually large institutions that took care of healthcare. And then you have the scuole. There were associations of all foreigners that lived in Venice. So Schul, but not just Schul. We are talking about a place where the Jewish people, but then you had the Scuola of the Greeks, then you had the Scuola of the Croatians. So a place where to meet. And this is very important because the synagogues were not just a place where you prayed. In the Venetian tradition, this was also where you could meet with the members of the community and help each other and say, Rabbi, this family has lost their father, why don't we help? So it was a sort of a lay association and not just a place where you prayed. Plus, it was the place where you studied. So three functions for the synagogues. And I insist, they were foreigners, they were considered foreigners, but by the Venetian state, also because we loved trading, we loved money, it was not a warm tolerance coming from the heart. They would say, no, if a foreign community settles in Venice, they will have freedom of religion and freedom to gather. In this very synagogue, we remember the Shoah. You may know that in Italy, we don't like using the word Holocaust. Because Holocaust is a sacrifice in the name of a God, and there was no God. So Shoah. And I don't know if you can see, because I have the sun right before me. Anyway, it says 1939, 1945, 200 Jews from Venice, 8,000 Jews from Italy, 6 million of Jews in Europe, from blind barbarian hatred in farther countries were chased, martyred, soppressi. This is just one of the memorials we'll see that remember the ones, to be honest, it says 200, the Jews that left and died in Auschwitz, in Ravensbrück, in other concentration camps were 246. I guess that they loved a round number. So they said, okay, for the inscription, let's put 200. Okay. I will talk about the Shoah later because there will be more, but I want to show you there, right opposite. There's another inscription. That's very different. It says, the Venetian Jews that died in the war for the country, the community remembers with love and pride. Aboaf Umberto, Ancona Paolo, Boralevi Giorgio, Foà Davide Guido, Grünwald Beniamino, and so on. You may also spot Navarro, Vivante, Sonnino, Soave. So we are not talking Sarfatti, all the different names. What is that? That's the inscription that was placed in 1920 after First World War to remember the Jews that probably, very likely killing more Jews from Austria, died for Italy. So the heroes of the Jewish community during World War I. And I insist, this inscription is facing the other one. I talked to a Jewish friend of mine, maybe some of you know, Shaul Bassi is a professor of English literature at the university in Venice. And he told me, these two inscriptions, you know, you pass in between. If I had been him, if I were him, I would feel goosebumps. Because it's 1938, to be precise, when the discrimination started, where people that were children, like Shaul's father, he was 8 when the teacher told him, after the discrimination racial law was approved by Mussolini, you are an enemy of the country. So these were the words with which he was told that this is no longer your school at 8 years of age. You are an enemy of the country. And right opposite, just 18 years before, you are a hero of this country. And we know that when we talk about anti-Semitism in Italy, there will be people that say, it's not important, there's no anti-Semitism in Italy. My personal view is that we always have to keep the eyes open. I show you now the entrance to the synagogue. Scuola Levantina. So up there. And I'll now walk with you down the other side. Just one thing I wanted to show you, sorry. I don't know if any of you speaks Italian, but right here by more of these very tall, densely populated places, you have the name Corte Scala Matta. So the courtyard of the crazy steps, of the crazy stairs. Crazy because, well, do you think it's normal to build a building like this with steps that take you all the way up? Yeah, it couldn't be but crazy. And now we move towards the oldest part of the ghetto. While I walk, you will see on the side some bakeries and then also some souvenirs shops. There's only one I would say is of interest if you're interested in Jewish heritage, as it's run by one of our members, Mr. Baruch, and he's a goldsmith. Actually, he makes wonderful mezuzot in silver filigree. And you can also see the mezuzot in Murano glass. You have all these religious objects that are truly made in Venice. And the name of the street is the same of his last name, Cale Barucchi. So I show you this is not to make publicity, but to say that there are clearly still people that work in the ghetto and are familiar with the tourism that runs around this place, which is relatively recent, I must admit. When I became a tour guide, it was 20 years ago. There was a very hard test to pass. And I remember meeting Shaul in the streets those days, and I told him, you know, I'm studying to become a tour guide. That's a very difficult exam to pass. And Shaul said, oh, okay, what are you reading? Which books are you reading to become a tour guide in Venice? I just wanted to show you, before I continue the story, this is the inscription that reminds us of the rabbi of Venice that was among the 246 victims of the Shoah. His name was Adolfo Ottolenghi. And this was a school. This was a school also after the Second World War. I met a lady that told me in 1946 she was here with 6 more kids. And that was the beginning of her joining back the Jewish culture after the Shoah. So yes, I told you about the exam. I told you that it was very hard. I told you that my friend Shaul said, which books are you studying to become a tour guide in Venice? And I said, well, there's that incredibly long book, you know, 750 pages about Venice, written in font 8, so very teeny, and mentioning everything in Venice, all the dates, and entering all the museums, and mentioning all the artworks, and giving dates and names and titles. And then Shaul asked me, wait, are you really sure that's the book you have to learn by heart? I said, yeah. How much is in that book of 750 densely written pages with no pictures dedicated to Jewish history, Jewish ghetto, Jewish life, Jewish people in Venice? And I startled, like, wait, I don't recall. It was 4 lines. 4 lines in 750 pages. And that was considered, you know, what we call the Bible, no, the book that says everything. And this is still a book that it's mentioned in the bibliography to learn about Venice. And it was printed in 1933 in the middle of fascism. So you see, when you have lots of generations of guides that are told this is the book to study, and then you're told the Jewish history is 4 lines out of 750 pages, then you get some ideas, which may be wrong. Today, we know that if you don't know about the Jewish history, you do not understand Venice. I'll add more to it, but now have a look at this lovely canal that runs around this here, which is a little island. And this was the very first metal foundry that was turned into the Jewish area. It's called the New Ghetto because it means the new metal foundry, but the new ghetto is actually much older than the old ghetto we have just seen. It's just that we have to agree on which meaning to give the word ghetto. I hope I'm clear. If I'm not, just ask. So you can see this canal runs all around. You have, again, very tall buildings. Actually, Up there, we have also some washing, some bras, some, well, okay, I will not show you the pants. And then on the other side, show you, this is the bridge I'm crossing. To get to the other side, you see the canal that runs around. So perfectly circumscribed, which was perfect for a metal foundry because of a fire, because of the risk of burning down the whole city to make weapons. Don't forget, that's what the ghetto was originally. So when is it that this area, which we are now entering, no longer would be a metal foundry and could become the Jewish area? And why did the city of Venice, that allowed a lot of foreigners live wherever they wanted, why did they apply a different rule for the Jews? So you needed to know that Venice was a city that in the beginning of, here we are, this is the Campo del Ghetto Nuovo. At the beginning of the 1200s, was a city that was able, conquering Constantinople with the Fourth Crusade, to get basically to the Black Sea and reach the Silk Road and import to all those Germans, Hungarians, and Polish, and Flemish, and Austrians the status of symbols of those civilizations that Europeans considered higher. So Arabs, basically, Palestine, Holy Land, and Asia. It was a very powerful city and a very aggressive city with an incredibly powerful navy. So that's what the cannons were for. Also to protect the trading convoys. And so imagine the fire. A lot of the ones, the founders here, were Germans. Who knows, maybe they already said ghetto and not ghetto. But then in the 1400s, Venice wanted to make the leap and to say, let's conquer Italy. What does it mean to conquer Padua, then Treviso, Vicenza, Verona, Brescia, Bergamo? It was during the 1400s an major investment. And they said, guys, it makes no sense to have a metal foundry so far from the arsenale. Let's use the assembly line method. So by 1434, in the middle of the major military campaign Venice was leading at that time to conquer the northern Italian peninsula, they closed the metal foundry here to move it somewhere else. And then some Christians moved here, the poorest. You had some like 100 people living here. The buildings were not this high. Imagine the air they breathed. And during those military campaigns years, you don't need me to tell you the whole story. I'm sure you know, 1453, the Ottomans conquered Constantinople. And when was it? 1495, eventually, at the end of the century, Vasco da Gama said, guys, we don't need to pass by Venice. We can bypass Venice. We can circumnavigate Africa. So while we lost Constantinople, while the Ottomans were getting much stronger, while the Portuguese bypassed Venice, then the Pope said, enough is enough. This country is too strong. And aligned the Pope with France, with Spain, with everybody. We call it the League of Cambrai, was Europe against Venice. At the beginning of the 1500s, Venice was defeated. And there were so many refugees that running away from Milan, from Lombardy, came towards Venice because they knew this city completely surrounded by water could protect them. And there arrived also some Jews. And then I will skip, but I'll tell you basically that Venice managed to reconquer the land that they had lost and changed the perspective, and no longer would be the aggressive military speaking city, but the Serenissima, the most serene state. That was the beginning of the 1500s, the major change. And in 1516, on the March the 29th, the Senatore Zaccaria Dolfin said, Jews, will live in Venice. And this was the place. They will live in Venice as long as they live in the ghetto with those gates. How many Jews were living in Venice at that time that were told, come and live here? 100. No more than 100. How many Jews would start coming after 1516 in this area? Thousands. That's sounding like it was then a pole of attraction or what? Let me show you the first synagogue. As you can see, it's a lovely place where everybody comes also to play. I'll go around. Are there questions that I needed to answer already?
We have a couple that have come in. So we've had one from Sharon. How many people or families would have lived in each ghetto?
So we don't have a correct number because especially the Sephardic community was very dynamic. It could be that they arrived and then they left again. And it's, let's say, in the books written 5,000 altogether in the 3 ghettos, I'll show you. But the truth is that likely they were not more than 3,000. Still, that's a lot. So consider that Venice at that time had 150,000 people. The Greek community that was the largest would be 10,000. So the Jewish community, some say, was the second largest foreign community that lived in Venice. I should say communities, as we understood that we had several different nations, but that's to answer the question. And the next one?
So this one is actually from Ronnie. He has 2 questions. The first question is, how many Jews live in Venice currently?
Okay.
And the second question, are any of the synagogues currently open and holding services at present?
Grazie. Okay, so the community right now, also because of a depopulation of Venice, is only 450. And that's including also the Jews that live on the mainland, so not strictly in the historical town of Venice. The synagogues are used. So, of course, with the COVID-19 rules, the ones I showed you at the beginning, the Sephardic ones, with a Sephardic rite, welcome all the Jews of our community. Then you have also another synagogue, or rather another community that you may have noticed during the filming. That was part of the Lubavitch Chabad community, and they have their own place. Sometimes they join the synagogues services, sometimes they don't, and they have their own part. So that's to answer the question. Now, what you're looking at, the 5 windows up there, is the very old synagogue. This dates back to 1528. And you see the room on top for the women, and then you have the 5 windows because it's supposed to remind you of the 5 books of the Torah, and the 3 windows in the center are always closed, because you need to know that in the synagogues in Venice, the bima is not placed in the middle of a room, but it's placed on one of its sides. So this was not originally so. Some architects studying the case have come up with the idea that probably the synagogues built for the Sephardic community influenced the synagogues for the Ashkenazi community. So what I've just shown you is the synagogue for the German community built in 1528, originally with the bima in the center. And then once viewing the synagogues of the Sephardic community, probably the bima was moved at one of the ends of the room. Now, I'm standing here, which is a very strange position. I saw that somebody was asking a question, but before I get back to this, I will enlarge to show you that wooden chapel. I hope you can see this wooden thing that comes out. Okay, so that's for the bima of the supposed French synagogue. We call it sort of a corner one, okay? So the name that is Canton, some say comes from Canton des Juifs in Marseille. So we have seen so far the Greek and Turkish, the Spanish and the Portuguese, the German. Now you're looking at the French. Let me now show you the Italian synagogue. The Italian synagogue, which is like the German and the French, not used for services, only on special occasions, is next door. In fact, the entrance to the synagogues is separate, but there are passageways that connect the one to the other. And again, you see the 5 windows, which did not appear, by the way, in the Sephardic. So the Sephardic followed their own rule and the Ashkenazi followed their other door. To be very precise, guys, though, this synagogue that opened in 1575 for the so-called Italian synagogue is neither Sephardic nor Ashkenazi. As you may know, the Italian Jews that moved to Rome before the diaspora do not call themselves Sephardic, do not call themselves Ashkenazi, as they came to Italy, to Rome, before the diaspora. So this is another of the synagogues. So you realize that in the Jewish ghetto, unlike what one expects, you had several languages, several rights, and several communities. Each of them received their own scuola. Do you want to tell me about the recent question that was raised and I could not see? I saw that it was popping up, but I could not see it.
We've just had one question come in from Ellie. She's asked, where are the Jewish cemeteries?
Bravissima, excellent question. So the Jewish cemetery was established in 1386, and it's on Lido Island, facing the Adriatic Sea. And next to the old ancient one, you have also the new one, still at the Lido. This opens another issue, and that is, if the synagogues and the ghetto I showed you date back to the 1500s, how comes that the cemetery for the Jewish community was already opened up in 1386? Well, the thing is that Jews likely were always around Venice, were also about the city because of the merchants' activities. But it's true that the very first contract, it was called condotta, which means behavior, was signed between the Jewish community and the Venetian state to let Jews move to Venice in 1382. Which is a very difficult time for Venice, or rather, the war against Genoa for the domination of the Mediterranean Sea had just ended the year before, 1381. Venice had won, but you know, after a 130-year-long war against a country, what do you need? You need money, you need capital. And so the Jews were absolutely the ones that the state of Venice thought they can help. So in 1382, the Jews were told you can live in Venice. And at that time, you know what? They lived in the most central part of the city, Rialto. And in 1386, to attract more Jews, then the possibility for the cemetery was given. Now I show you where the canal that I told you runs around, keeps on going. So you see here. So in 1386, the Jews were given this place, which is still today the cemetery. And I tell you what, today, the Lido, oh yeah, you can go horseback riding, you can play your golf game, you can do your tennis game, you can enjoy the beach, you can enjoy the film festival. Believe me, if there is one thing you would not do in 1386, apart from watching films, was enjoy yourself at the Lido. The Lido was the forgotten island where nobody wanted to go. And, you know, if that kept on being the graveyard for very long, then in the 1700s, Napoleon changed the tombstones and placed cannons to shoot from the tombstones of the Jewish community. What else? And then the cemetery became all of a sudden 5 times smaller than it was. So basically we have only just the tombstones. That was a place harder to reach. We are on the opposite. It takes an hour when you row to go all the way to the Lido from here. So I hope that I'm answering the questions, but I want also to show you where we are. So this is the canal that runs around the ghetto and continues. Now they are rebuilding a bridge here. So it goes this way and turns all around. And I show you here the expression, sorry for that, the work in progress, campo del ghetto nuovo. So when in 1516, Zaccaria Dolfin established the ghetto, what was at stake? Money. They needed money lending. They needed financially speaking, experts that could help not just the state, but also the impoverished Venetians. So I show you now where the pawn shops called Banco Rosso would be. Again, I have to be careful because I don't know why, but somebody last week heard them and understood porn shop. I said, no, it's pawn. So P-A-W-N. Okay, so this is therefore the Banco Rosso. There used to be two more pawn shops. One was called the Green and another one was called the Black. And they likely were where you see now the opening where I was with the bridge. So what is interesting is the color. Now, why red, why green, why black? Most of the Venetians that came here would be illiterate. So they would come here with a shaving set, with an object in pewter. It could be also that they came here with some linen, like exaggerated some silverware, and then they got a money loan. And the receipt would bear a color so that they would remember to whom they owed the money. The interest rates were apparently very convenient for the Jewish community. The truth is that these moneylenders hardly saw that money back. So in fact, what happened was that in the Rialto, auctions were arranged and you would then sell those objects, those pawns, hoping to get a little bit more than you had hoped. So this was, you had a given. So this was, in fact, this is the reason why I always describe the Jewish Ashkenazi moneylenders in the ghetto as the poor moneylenders. And sometimes people say, well, how can you be poor if you are not, if you're lending money? Well, don't forget, Jews in Venice were allowed only to be moneylenders, only to be doctors, and only to sell the second-hand textile, so schmatta, so the rugs. So this was these were the only three activities the Jews were allowed. And that's very important, guys. You could not own property. So when you look at these high buildings and you wonder, wow, who would pay for the extra floors? Well, often it was the Jewish family that lived in there that paid for the restoration, that paid for the better conditions of life, paid for more light, but these never were homes that belonged to the Jews. The Venetian state that clearly needed moneylenders and could not survive without the Jewish help, at a certain point recognized that these people were spending money for a house that would not be theirs. So they invented the so-called Yus Hazaka. And they said, look, this is not yours, but you can lend it to your family and you can sub-rent it. So this is the reason why in the documents of the State Archive in Venice, we find out that there were Christians also that lived in the ghetto, the very poor ones that were paying the rent to the Jews that were paying the rent to higher level Christians, in social class, so richer ones. There's one more thing I would like to show you before I move to the other part. As you noticed, there's a lot I would like to show you, and believe me that I can easily spend here 5 hours, but don't worry, you have your lunch. So this is the other memorial I like showing. The artist was from Lithuania, the Jerusalem of the North. His name was Arbit Blatash. I'll show you his name. This is a bronze bas-relief, and it was entitled The Last Train. In 1989, Arbit Blatash offered this work to remember those Jews from Venice that lost their lives. This is the moment when the train arrives. You see the rifles, the machine guns. You do not see the face, it's all blurred, but we can spot the mother holding the baby, somebody carrying a suitcase. And then the limping one, helped by more, another suitcase. Another family group. It's the arrival point. The last train was then combined with wooden planks right on the back, where you read the names of each of the single people, women, men, children, together with, I hope you can see, I'm trying to make it focus. Okay, so you can see also the age when they were killed. The youngest one was 2 months old. And this is an interesting work because on one side you see the bronze relief without those faces to tell it's a tragedy that concerns the whole humankind. And then we know that the history is made of the single people that we are all asked to remember. The fact that it's all in wood, to me, suggests two things. First, that this could be that train, that this could be the wooden planks at the side of the train, but also the material, which is not the bronze that always lasts. It's the wood that deteriorates, that tells us we have to be committed to remember, and it's not going to be easy. It's something that can disappear like wood. It's a very powerful work. The only thing I not complain, but I provoke sometimes. I say, is this the right place where to place the concentration camp and the memorials? To me, this could be perfect also in St. Mark's Square, in the sense that when we think of, I don't know, a street dedicated to Martin Luther King, would you place it in the African American district of a city only? Of course not. But there's one more thing. Why were the Jews here? And why did they come? True, it is that you had no choice. How many other cities in Europe would be tolerant as Venice? Clearly, I told you, this was a city that was tolerant because it was convenient. But it's also true that when Venice had to choose which moneylenders would help the Republic of Venice in that very difficult times, a time when Venice Republic was almost going to disappear, you would say, well, Christians were not allowed to lend money. No. The Pope and the Franciscans had taken an agreement in the 1400s to open their pawn shops with interest rates, just like the Jewish pawn shops. But Venice told the Franciscans, you are not allowed to lend money in Venice, only in the Venetian territory, only Jews will lend the money. So we will give them the monopoly. I think that this is because Venice did not want to give to the clergy and the papacy any power. On the other side, they knew that Jews were holding the knife by the blade and not by the hand. But it's also true that Jews would be taking care of a money lending activity with that expertise that no other community would be able to take. And then they could be accused of usury, and then they would run the debts, not the Christians. But why did they come to Venice then if it was a ghetto? Well, the best description of the ghetto in the books I read was written by a Jewish historian that said the ghetto was the best compromise among, in between the chimera of being accepted and the nightmare of being banished. So those gates were perceived as a protection. They were perceived during the night hours as a way to be, in a way, somewhere inside, somewhere protected, somewhere where you would not experience any violence. True is that when Napoleon removed the gates, there would be a big festivity. We know that Jews would finally say, we can be part of Venice. They wanted to rename the ghetto as the Reunion Square. And so little by little they left. Before I finish, and I want to add 10 more minutes, I hope it's not too much of a problem, but I want to show you, first of all, the elderly home, which was created in 1890. And you see also an inscription of a person we all know. Giuseppe Iona was a doctor of the Jewish community. Our hospital in Venice is also dedicated to Giuseppe Iona. Giuseppe Iona was the president of the community, and he was arrested immediately after the armistice Italy signed in September the 8th in 1943. He was the first one to be arrested. But he had understood, and he had hidden all the books reporting where Jews in Venice lived. And so when the Nazis said, okay, where are the Jewish community members? Giuseppe Iona killed himself. So he's the one that in a way has saved a lot of Jews that could either hide in Venice or go to Switzerland. By the way, in the inscription, there's a sign, there are 3 lines at the end. It says, to the ruin of Italy, with the martyrdom of Israel, he would not be able to survive. It's like saying you were not strong enough, you decided to kill yourself. Now, there's a discussion whether we should remove this inscription, leave it. I belong to an institution, the IVESER, that is taking care of the huge archive regarding Second World War, Holocaust, Shoah, and such. And they said, no, we have to keep it because it tells what people thought when that inscription was kept. Of course, none of us believes Iona was a coward, as that line seems to suggest. He was a hero, but we cannot erase history. We have to keep in mind, let's say, the process of thinking. One more thing you find here, and you are, I'm sure, familiar with the Stolpersteine. In Italian, we call them pietre d'inciampo. We place them here. These are by Gunther Demnig. Sorry, I'm able to, okay, so let's see. So here you have these stones that remind you of the ones that lived in this place and were arrested to be killed in Auschwitz. I'll be happy to send you my blog post on memorials of the Shoah in Venice, so you can read there. But when you remember I was talking about anti-Semitism, you will find now in Europe there are over 70,000 of these. There was one day, I think it was 3 years ago, that one of these Stolpersteine was stolen. Okay, so the news talked about, you see, this is just kids playing. Kids playing what? You steal a Stolperstein? It's like killing that person a second time. So we paid for its replacement, and it's there back to where it was. But these are the signs we needed to be careful about. Now I'm taking you outside the ghetto to show you the third part, which is very small. We will leave the Campo del Ghetto Nuovo and we'll get across a bridge that is crossing that canal that runs all around. This is also where there would be another gate. Okay, so here, this is where there would be more of the gates. This is the canal that runs around. And I turn around so you can see also this side here with the laundry in between, hopefully not falling in the water. And then we'll enter the other side. So let's go back to the history. 1382, the very first contract. Then 1386, the cemetery. Venetians, helped by the moneylenders that were all Jewish and lived in Rialto. And when the economic situation of Venice was good again, then some excuse was found to banish the Jews from Venice that went to live in Mestre. And every now and then, during the 1400s, they would come back to Venice and would help the city, and then back in Mestre, till that economic collapse of the city that brought the Senate to decide, we want Jewish moneylenders, we don't want Franciscans, friars to lend money. So Jews will come back to Venice, but this time they will live in the ghetto, far away from Rialto, with the gates. 1516, the first ones, 1541, the Sephardic, and then in 1630, the big bubonic plague that killed 55,000 people, 1/3 of the population in Venice. And in 1633, some Jews were told, you may stay in Venice. They were Sephardic, especially Portuguese. And they were told, come to Venice. You see, after the depopulation because of a disease, the repopulation, thanks to people that could bring money. Not this time as money lenders, no. We talk about merchants now. And I'm walking down this area that the Venetian state hoped would be bigger, where you can also see the missing mezuzah here. I hope that the connection holds enough here, because I know that in this street it's kind of weak. These families that came here were Sephardic, but did not want to live in the Sephardic area because they were not just richer, they were also of a different education level. Now I'll show you, this is the back of the house of a family Vivante. You got it. This was one home for one Jewish family that moved to Venice. This is just the back. I'll show you now the front part. Ah, by the way, they had also their gate. Look at which gate. It's huge. It's monumental. So this is to show you that the ghetto was ghettos, not just physically, that you had different areas, but that the quality of life in the ghetto would be different according to the level of education and to which social class you belonged to. And this shows that compromise. That shows that probably the only way Venice would have to get the money of the Jews, to get their expertise in finance, was to keep them in a city invisible, somewhere away from the view of the other ones that lived in the city. Hiding would be also hiding the pawn shops. Who knows, maybe even the Venetians found it convenient not to be viewed when they came to get money loans for the shame of poverty. And so in the only part of Venice where nobody lived, where the metal foundries had been, where no church ever had been designed, consecrated, Venice invented a city in the city, which clearly at the end of the 1700s would no longer work. It had to be the multi-ethnic city. By the way, guys, in the 1800s, the Jews were the first ones to fight against the foreign domination of Venice, to be on the foreground, not just during the First World War, to make Venice a free city again. But this is the thing, that we cannot find one single way to describe the ghetto, because every time we try to pin down words, we are missing a part. Its dynamic, its I would say very complex nature is the one we have to face. And that's the fun about history, that if it were simple, then you know, you would not even study it. But when it's complicated, then you really get into it. This is the front, so this is where the Vivante family lived. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'm sorry if I had to skip some parts, and I'm ready to hear your questions, which I hope I will be able to answer.
Louisella, thank you so much. That was incredible. And the comments that people have been sending me on the chat, they have all thoroughly enjoyed it, your knowledge and everything of the area. So thank you so much. If you do have any questions, please just pop them in the chat and we will ask Louisella. I've got a couple of questions for you in the meantime. One, I know you showed us the Jewish bakery. Are there any other kosher restaurants in the area?
So wait, restaurants, yes, we have the Gam Gam. So not a bakery, but a restaurant run by the Lubavitch community.
Thank you. And then another question, are the streets noticeably quieter for this time of year? And are the locals enjoying the peace or struggling from the lack of international?
This is the answer. Can you see them? The quieter. So no, I mean, this is a weekend. I hope that tomorrow it will not be as crowded as it is today. So I kept you away from the crowds, but we have the crowds. Isn't that cool that you eat yours, and you drink your prosecco on a boat?
That's amazing. Louisella, thank you so much. There's actually been no more questions, so thank you on behalf
so
of...
I would like to thank you very much for giving me the chance to talk about one of my favorite parts of Venice. Guys, I hope to meet you in person in Venice. In the meanwhile, stay safe, and a big hug from Venice to all of you and to the great organization that you arranged. Grazie mille.
Louisella, thank you so much.
I have a face.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Ciao. I'd also like to say thank you to everyone for joining this morning. Thank you for your donations. And we will be sending a post-event email out with Louisella's details as well, if any of you would like to contact her directly, or if you have any other questions about Venice. And we will keep you posted. We are looking to do other tours like this with our tour guide virtually in the area walking around. So we will of course keep you posted. So on behalf of everyone at Maccabi GB, thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday and take care and keep safe.
Grazie mille. Ciao, ciao, ciao everyone. Grazie, grazie, grazie.